All right. Good evening, everyone. It's 6:30. I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the March 13th meeting of the Merrimack Conservation Commission. Let's see. Who are we missing? So Andy's not. So Mike, would you sit in as a voting member for Cindy? All right, perfect. Okay. All right, we have no public hearings scheduled. We don't have any new business items tonight. There is public comment because we have an audience tonight. I assume, are all of you here because you're interested in the Fields Farm portion? Okay. No one's, yeah, everyone for the Fields Farm. So if you have public comment, we can take it at that time, rather than get ahead of ourselves and do it now. So that brings us to other business. The first item we have under other business is the 22nd annual seedling giveaway. What are the updates?
All right, so we voted to spend $500. We've subsequently missed the last couple events that we could purchase at that price, so we're right now at about $550 to purchase somewhere 9 different varieties, 375 seedlings. So if you want me to move forward, we're gonna need to change the value of the vote by $50.
I'll want to make a motion?
I wasn't here for the original motion, so I didn't want to be the one to. I can
I'll make a motion to, from Fund 53 to increase the expenditure to buy seedlings from $500 to $570 for a little cushion.
That should cover all the shipping and any other charges that show up.
Second. From Fund 53, motion by Mike Plavera, second by Mike Druin. Any discussion needed on this? No? All those in favor? Motion carries. 6 to 0. Thank you, Gage, for pushing that along. Some other items we probably should, well, we don't know the species yet, or do we know the species yet?
I have a list of what I'm intending to buy, but we need to make sure that once we place the order, they're still available, so. But yes, I have a species list, I have the whole thing, so.
So I guess who is it? Was it you, Ellen, last year that put that on the? So once he has the species list, I know Gina, I think we could probably coax her into doing up the.
Doing up an order form?
In fact, I don't know that she'll allow anyone else to do that. So maybe I'll talk to her about doing up the cards once we get the species list.
Yep.
And are you able to post it on?
I will post it any place it'll take it, online, in paper, bulletin boards, what have you.
Fantastic. Because I know a lot of the people that come with certain species in mind.
Yeah, so when I have the order, or the downstairs has to make the order for us, but when it's placed and we know that we have it, I'll sign it up.
Are you able to pick them up? In the past, I've grabbed them because they've been
Oh,
in
yeah,
Boston.
Long story, we don't need to go into here, but
You
yes,
got it? Okay.
we're all set.
Have you spoken to Mr. Courier?
I have,
You have. Okay.
yes.
I assume he's willing.
He wants to know when to turn the fridge on. So,
It's the easiest portion of this process, that's for sure. What about the supplies? Do we have anything left from last month?
the what?
What did we have in terms of supplies? What did we put them in last year?
5-gallon buckets.
Oh, the bags.
Yeah,
I have no idea what's left.
okay.
I don't know what's left. We have till May.
Yeah,
so-
I'm gonna put seedling supplies on
Yeah.
an upcoming
I
agenda.
can check before we, next meeting.
Excellent. Anything else? No?
Good to go.
Okay, moving on. The next item under other business is update on Fields Farm access. So, I think we've addressed this in several recent meetings. We did get a response back from the town's attorney on just some guidance on where to go next. So some things that are part of your packet. They're out of order. Some things that are part of your packet or our previous meeting minute notes. And of course, all of you, I don't know if any of you saw any of these materials that were part of the packet.
None of us really got any notifications on.
This mic or this? Oh, there might be some extras there. Yeah, so I'll just read what was included in the packet. The first item was minutes from the December 16th, 2014 meeting. Minutes from the September 23rd, 2014 meeting. In both of those, the highlighted portions are the parts of that meeting relative to the discussion about Fields Farm and the transfer of portions of that property. There's also in the meeting minutes the advice that was given to us by Drummond and Woodson attorneys at law that was provided to the town. Reference this parcel and the next necessary steps. I'm not going to read through the thing and read through it in its entirety. But essentially what it's asking us is on our next agenda, well, maybe I do need to read a portion of this in its entirety. All right, I'll do that. I think we're supposed to read this entire thing into the record anyhow. So, dear commissioners, I am one of the town's attorneys. I've been working with Robert Price in the Community Development Department, and prior to that with Tim Tenhave, your former chair, regarding a large parcel of open space at tax map lot 4B 9-1 in the Timasian Drive LLC subdivision. Please see the attached plan, and that's Exhibit A, that's included in the packet. When the planning board conditionally approved this subdivision in December 2014, the 25.19 acre open space parcel, which abuts tax maps lot 4A-/2, the Fields Farm property, was intended to be conveyed in fee or by conservation easement to the Conservation Commission. And see the exhibit, those meeting notes from September 23rd, 2014. This, however, was inadvertently never made a condition of approval. However, the town zoning ordinance does require that the open space be created in these types of cluster subdivisions, and that the open space is protected by recreation and conservation easements and conveyed to the property owners to be maintained as a permanent open space or permanently protected in other subtitle ways or suitable ways. To guarantee continuity of proper maintenance for these portions of the open space, land requiring maintenance, or of open space land requiring maintenance, the zoning ordinance section 3.08, one of the developers, John Tenhave, as well as the Community Development Office, tell me this project was never intended to have an HOA maintaining the open space. In order to ensure the perpetual conservation and maintenance, therefore, the Conservation Commission is the likely candidate to hold that role. The town/Conservation Commission waited appropriately to take title of the property until the development was completed. The open space conveyance then was inadvertently overlooked until November of 2020, when the Conservation Commission, through Tim Tenhave, sought to close the loop on the land and obtain the property as initially planned. The result, in me working with Tim and Robert Price and Community Development to review the plans, approvals, and titles of the individual lots to ensure a clear title could be conveyed to the Conservation Commission. My review of the titles and the individual lots revealed that the developer, Timasian Drive LLC, mistakenly conveyed an undivided common interest in the open space land to 6 of the 9 lot owners in the development. 6 of the 19, thank you, lot owners in the development. Northview Homes also retained an undivided common interest to the open space land. This is all contrary to what was intended. What was indeed intended was for Tomasian Drive LLC to convey the open space land to the Conservation Commission. They can't do that now because there are 7 owners who now have an interest in the common land, 6 plus Northview. To resolve this issue and to place control of the management of the open space land with the Conservation Commission, all of these 6 lot owners, plus Northview, have to convey their interest in the open space to the Conservation Commission. The best option to do this at this time is an easement rather than fee conveyance, in parentheses, outright ownership. This is because many of these lot owners have mortgages which will not allow for a fee transfer, as it will affect the title to their properties. An easement conveyance converting their interest to the open space will likely still require mortgage company approval, but will likely be given freely. Still, it will take time to get these approvals. John Tenhave, one of the original developers, is working with us to accomplish this goal. If the commission is in agreement with the above proposed to acquire a conservation easement over the 25.19 acre open space land, I will proceed working with John, Tim, and Robert Price to approach these 6 lot owners with an explanatory letter and a proposed easement for them to review and ideally sign. The incentive for these lot owners is that at the moment they have liability as owners for this open space for any damage or injury that occurs on it. They are also likely getting taxed a small amount for it. We are hopeful that with Tim's help, we can get all 6 of the lot owners on board. We will also have Northview Homes convey in fee their interest to the Conservation Commission. Please put this on your agenda. You can read and discuss this letter in public session, since it is nothing confidential, and discuss what you want to do and take a vote. If the commission agrees, please vote as follows. And we would move that the town should move forward to attempt to acquire conservation easement for the Conservation Commission for the open space land at map lot 4B 9 through 1 in the Tomasian Drive subdivision. If the commission does not agree, the 6 owners plus Northview will retain ownership of the liability and responsibility for the open space unless we can find another entity willing to take on the conservation easement. And so that is the recommendation from the town's attorney in its entirety. Before we move, since there are members of the public here, did any of you want me to reread any portions of that, or did anyone want more history of why this matter has come back here and why we're discussing it again? Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Can you just come up and say your name first?
This microphone?
Any of them you want. These 2 at the table are both turned on already.
And for the record, could I have your name and your address, please?
My name is Lori Crow.
Could you spell that, please?
Crowe, first name Lori.
Thank you.
I live at 8 Tomasian. I am one of the people that has the common space issue. When you say easement, what does that mean?
Describe that, Les. It's not a transfer of the actual. It doesn't impact the title or anything. It just.
Well, it will be in the title.
Yeah, it's
'cause
recorded in the
it's-
title.
What you'd be allowing is open space access to that property.
Okay,
That
open
section
space-
of the property, not your entire yard. It
Yeah,
would
but that I would still own the property,
be- Yes.
Oh, yeah.
but we would be allowing strangers to go through it?
Through that
Future
portion.
friends.
Whatever. People. Call them
People.
friends we haven't met yet. How then, if we give up the easement, or I say, yeah, okay, let's go with the easement, how do I then give you the liability if someone gets hurt in my property?
Because we own the easement.
Okay, you would own the easement.
And again, if we don't own the property, we own the easement.
You
We
just own the easement.
Right,
Okay,
we own
so
the rights on top of
you
the
take
property.
the liability with you.
Right.
Okay, all right.
And none of us on this commission are attorneys.
Yeah.
But what the town's attorney is asking to do is speak with you and any of the other homeowners directly. So these would certainly be, questions you'd want
Yeah,
to ask in detail of them.
I'm not sure how, I mean, I'm assuming that the common parcel has been divided amongst the 6 of you? No, okay, so, please.
Would you please? And this is just our good fortune, which we don't always have. Tim's actually here to talk about the next agenda item.
Okay.
So what the town's attorneys discovered
You know
is,
better. Come on.
Tim, your name.
it's
Tim
on,
Tannehill.
sorry, yes. Tim Tenhave, 5 Windy Hollow Circle. So what the town's attorneys discovered is that there are 7 people who own an interest in the property. They all own an undivided share, which means it's not 1/6, 1/7. They all, so even though one of those owners, Northview Homes, has potentially more parcels, you might say, or retained the rights to more parcels, it's undivided that way. So the town's attorney suggested that Northview Homes sign over their ownership, their interest in the parcel to the Conservation Commission, and that would take Northview Homes out of the picture. That would be yours, so you would have an interest if you did that. Also suggesting that the 6 other landowners provide a conservation easement to allow uses of that property and to assume some of the responsibility and liability. You, as becoming an owner of a portion from Northview Homes, would have liability as well. The town would, I should say. I won't say the Conservation Commission, the town would. So these other 6 property owners, if they own their parcels complete, they could sign over their interest completely because they would have complete control over their own property if there's no mortgage or encumbrance on the property. If they have a mortgage or something that encumbers their property, they would have to work it out with the mortgage company to make sure that they could sign it over, or which is typically less onerous and more acceptable to people who have a lien on your property is a conservation easement. The land really has very little value. It's open space. It's not developable. So and I'm speaking from my knowledge, but I'm not an attorney. It doesn't have very little. It has very little value because you can't build on it, and if you're only a partial owner, there's a whole lot of other. You'd have to work with everyone to do something on it. So. And you can see that because if you look at the taxes on that parcel, they're this, right? The town doesn't even assess the tax on them. At least it hasn't up until 2 years ago when I was more involved with all this stuff. So a conservation easement is an opportunity for you to, as a group of folks, to all agree to put certain restrictions on the property, to say what can and can't be done, because you're giving that easement. But once you've done that, that carries on in perpetuity from then on for the next person who buys your property and all that stuff. But there's ideally the Conservation Commission interest is to keep it open space to ideally, I think, tie it with the Fields Farm property, which is abutting it, and to therefore manage the 2 parcels in a similar manner with similar restrictions on them. And those restrictions, if you want me to go down that path for a second, you tell me if you don't. They can be quite almost anything. I know a concern from speaking to my neighbors in the past is part of that lot is right on the corner of Tomasian Drive and Amherst Road. Well, you can easily put as a restriction, no parking facilities allowed, okay? And you can make that concern of a parking facility next to your house go away. So if that's something you wanted to do, because you're in the driver's seat as the owners of the property right now, so you can do that. I think for the commission's interest, they would like to make sure that it remains open space and that there's no structures built and all those other things that we do with what the commission's done normally for their properties, and we can bring up examples of those conservation easements, which is what I think what you're all about. So I think ideally the commission probably would like to allow usage of the property in a passive way, the same as the property next door. And I say passive meaning non-motorized, right? Uses. And that probably plays well with some of you not wanting to have motors going on in your backyard. And then beyond that is to make sure that, someone doesn't erect signs on signs as in commercial type signs. I mean, trail signs, yes, you'd like to have those. No one builds a building out there, so there's no storage shed built out there, no destruction of stone walls and things like that too. So, but did that help answer the question?
That helped me immensely. I know we've discussed it before when we've been out walking the dog, but it kind of, now it's all tied together.
Yeah,
So
okay.
thank you very much. It's
right.
very helpful.
Yeah.
Now I'll be able to go home and tell my husband.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, with none of us as attorneys, if we were to make and accept a motion such as was recommended by the attorney here, that is the point at which someone with legal background would be approaching the property owners?
That's what they would like to do next, yeah. We have to vote to tell them that that's the path we want to do, and like Tim said, that is our goal, is, to marry this with that landlocked parcel that is the Fields Farm parcel. We have been unable to do that. This has been on a back burner for a lot of years,
while,
and
yeah.
it's kind of delayed our progress in creating a trail network, a trail map, and do the things for the Fields Farm parcel that we've done for the other parcels in town that, people enjoy. Horse Hills, Wildcat Falls, all Greater Woods, all the other parcels. But that's why Fields Farm doesn't have any of those things right now.
Okay.
Question for Tim. So if the developer or whoever it is that gives over their ownership and they keep theirs, us being an owner, would that allow people to be on that property?
Well, it really depends on what you put in the conservation easement, but I would say yes. Right.
Well, I mean, if we're an owner with
Right.
them,
Yeah.
still being on it, not giving anything, would the public be allowed on that property?
You would have to work that out with the other owners.
I think because it's partial ownership and not, we
Right,
don't each have our
Right.
little
You-
pieces.
They
but-
don't, right, you don't, it's common ownership around 7 entities right now. So the 7 entities would have to agree to the rules that you'd want to have on that property. And by enacting a conservation easement on it, you actually set rules.
Like we did with chapter 111. It was wonderful timing, Tim. Thank you.
I got wind that there might be a discussion.
Would anybody else like to speak?
Sir, please come up and,
Yeah,
I think we all have some concerns.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on up.
I am.
Can you,
I think it's 4, 8, Tunisian, and I forget the one. Yeah, there's somebody hall. But they have it. So are we allowed to express concerns at this point?
yeah, absolutely.
please.
Okay, I will let them too. I apologize, I can get long-winded. I grew up in Massachusetts and I was very involved with the Second Amendment down there, and I spent many, many hours at the State House. So if you hear me rambling, just tell me to stop rambling. I will try to be brief. I'll let them finish. Some of the concerns that I'm going to express, I know are shared by the rest of the group. But first and foremost, I also, one of the gentlemen that lives on Tamazian, he's not part of the common access, is away and is very concerned about this. One of the concerns is what will a cost be, of course, to implement trails, et cetera? Where is the money going to come from? That type of thing. And I know you're well into the whole thing, so that may have all been resolved. Will it be an ADA accessible property? Will you be able to meet those requirements? I've never walked through there, but from the street, it looks like it's fairly steep. If one of the groups is planning a hike on there on Sunday, the 26th. Oh, was that your group? We're going to do our best to get there, just to scope out the property to see what it is, because we've never been in there. You sort of addressed the parking issue. Um, in my eyes, if I relinquish my say or my property, one of my issues would definitely be there would be no parking lot there. And not just from the reason I don't want strangers in my neighborhood, but there's a school bus stop right there. With no sidewalks on Amherst, if people obey the rules, so to speak, they would have to cross from that parking lot over to the other side of Amherst, walk down facing traffic, and then cross again to go into any access to Field Farms. From Field? Sorry, I'm mixing it up.
Yeah.
The property. And that in itself presents a huge danger if there's no parking made available down there. Same would happen if you say, oh, just park at Horse Hill. Same thing. They might be able to stay on the same side to walk down, but they would have to cross across traffic. And people scream on that road. They absolutely, the speed limit there, I believe, is 35. We hear it at night sometimes when this time of year when there's no foliage, and you'll hear a vehicle go by easily, from my estimation, about 60 or 70 miles an hour on that stretch. We've seen it during the day. So those are some of the issues. Of course, property values we'd be concerned about. People walking up from the trails to the backs of our houses, potentially vandalism, potential theft, etc. Fire risk. I don't know if this happens in Horse Hill. People might campfires when they're not supposed to. I don't know if that's an issue or not. I'm kind of grasping at a few things because I've only lived in Merrimack for 4.5 years. So I'm not totally familiar with everything just yet. And I really appreciate the opportunity here to become involved. And of course, homelessness is becoming a serious issue. And I have not seen it, of course, in Horse Hill. But there is the concern that the problems in Manchester and Nashua could start drifting because we're sandwiched right in between the two. And down that section, where there aren't a lot of people, I think would be possibly more vulnerable. Has anyone done any type of wildlife impact study? Excuse me, in the area. In Winning Hollow Estates, we see deer, moose, bear, coyotes, fox. I've seen possums. I've seen porcupines. We have a fisher, a very bold fisher, I might say. My concern is, one, if there are trails in there and people are constantly in there, it's going to push the wildlife into the neighborhood, and that could cause some very serious interactions. I'm concerned if they're looking for a food source and there are trash cans and whatever, that could be a problem. And I'm also concerned about hunting. They've been hunting there for decades, as far as I know. We hear it and whatever. My concern is if you stop that hunting, because some of the anti-hunters say, okay, that's now a dual use area, the risk is too great, you've got to stop all the hunting. I'm worried about wildlife populations then overpopulating and worried about Lyme disease, rabies, the whole bit. At this point in time, I can't say that I'm opposed or for it, because I would need to see what's proposed for trails, what hours, would there be parking? And one hand, it's like, oh, cool, we can just walk down the street and we've got another nice area to go in. I've had dogs since I got married. We love to walk our dogs. We have a Gordon Setter right now who just loves to be outside, loves to sniff, loves people. And the thought of a new place to explore is very enticing. But my concern is, because we didn't even know, or most of us didn't even know what point this was at. Are they at the point of cutting trails? You know, what legal stuff has to be crossed, et cetera. We've gotten virtually no notification. And I know because it's not a public hearing, as long as the agenda is printed on the commission's website, I believe that does follow the guidelines. But not many of us go every day and look and see what's going on. I will make it a note that maybe I should pay more attention to that, like I do the community development. So those are just some of the concerns that we would have.
Let me take a shot at answering some of them, and hopefully the ones I miss, what you can follow up to. In terms of fires, overnight camping. So we just recently, with the support of the town council, passed updated It's called Chapter 111. It's updated statutes that govern these properties. Fields Farm is one of the ones that's governed under that. And
Okay.
part of the regulations are there's no
No fires.
overnight camping and
Right.
no fires. There's a lot of other regulations too. Some of them have to do with hunting. Fields Farm is one of those parcels where hunting isn't prohibited.
Right.
Because there are people, residents of Merrimack who do hunt. There are some other properties where it made sense where we curtailed hunting, and a lot of mainly, you know, Greater Woods, the parcels there near the middle school, those areas where it made sense to do that. We've been reluctant to over restricting any of the parcels. I mean, we restrict the things that naturally need to be restricted. In terms of the development of this property, it has been on a back burner for several years. I think the path going forward, assuming, and there's no guarantee that, you know, certainly no timeline for which this would take place, where the 6 property owners or 7 property owners would grant these easements. If that happened relatively quickly, generally the next steps we would take is we would probably try to stand up a subcommittee in which would really like and hope that a lot of you that are closest to this parcel would be a part of that subcommittee, and that subcommittee we would take recommendations. We have subcommittees on Horse Hills, we have subcommittees on Greater Woods, we have subcommittees at Scalar, which is a fairly new property. Yet we have subcommittees at Wildcat Falls. We have a subcommittee member in the audience. So we would look to them to help us guide, you know, how many trails is appropriate. We don't want to turn this thing into Central Park. Believe me, we want to make it, you know, our goal here, we're all conservation minded. That's why we do it. We want to have an area where people can go out and observe and appreciate the wildlife that is there without interfering it. We want to protect the wetlands that are there. So we, you know, in terms of funding, I'll tell you, we spend very little money as this, you know, this commission, since I've been here, we spend very little money. You know, we spend $600 to repair a bridge. We do that sort of thing, but we don't pay someone to go out and build trails. You know, as a result, a lot of those trails aren't ADA accessible. You couldn't get down a wheelchair down a lot of our trails. It may be appropriate to have a trail that you can do that on. But you have to have, you know, to have that kind of trail, you need to have a parking lot that supports the use of an ADA trail
Right.
and so on and so forth. But we've been very fortunate that volunteers, subcommittee members, that's who maintains these trails, and go walk on any of our parcels. We're really fortunate to have the trail networks that we have. The mountain bike clubs, I mean, they do a lot of this work. They haul this lumber into these areas. It's hard to believe anyone would ever haul lumber into just to rehab and refer and so forth with these trails. I got a handful of your questions. What else did someone want to fill in
So-
some blanks that I missed?
As like an adjacent property owner to like I live close to Greater Woods. And so occasionally, what can you expect? I mean, once in a great while, someone will get lost and might stagger, you know, come into your backyard and say, where am I? You know, of course, you already know if there's hunting, you might hear some
Yeah.
gunshots.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Opening day turkey season is
Yeah, and
like World War
that's-
III out there sometimes.
that's not going to change unless you do something, you know.
Oh, I have
in your
no issue
easement.
with that at all.
Yeah, there's hunting in Greater Woods too. You know, there might be there'll probably be a trail eventually going through this easement, so you might see through the woods someone walking or biking through there. But you know, it's not too bad except for people wandering off once in a while into your backyard or something like that. But that doesn't happen very often.
We don't put trash cans on our properties either.
No, we
That
don't.
was one of our, that was one of our concerns.
Yeah.
Well, I was more referring to trash cans in my
So-
neighborhood, people that leave them outside the garage or whatever.
Okay.
Usually,
And a creature wandering up. So
So-
far, we've had no bad interaction. We've had a mom and bear cubs and other bears go through the neighborhood, and so far, we've had no bad interactions with them or the coyotes.
You are aware that the parcel next door, Fields Farm, is already pretty well used. There's a lot of bike activity out there.
Yeah, I have seen the
Right.
bike groups go through there, yes.
Right, so the size of this parcel versus the size of that parcel, if you're not seeing migration of animals already now, that, you know, the 1 or 2 trails that go through here or wind their way through, is really not gonna have much of an impact. Because we found, and I can, you know, particularly in the spring and late fall, if you go walk a trail quietly by yourself, there's often animals on it. They'd rather be on the trail than trying to mush through
Right,
the
trying to
woods.
go
So
through the
it's
woods,
it actually allows you to see more. So it's we've had quite a bit of sightings that animals on trails. That's a lot of the pictures we get are animals
Are
on
from there, yeah.
trails. And the homelessness is an interesting issue. It's nothing that we've experienced. We've not had any calls for that. Every time we see any kind of activity out there that's not welcome, we've been notifying the police and they can deal with it as needed.
As
But
needed.
that's one we haven't seen.
Okay.
And we've got 1,600 acres in town. So
Okay. With the concern with all the, like the Manchester encampment being shut down in Nashua and all that, the people have to go somewhere, and I guess it's a good thing to some extent that they're not particularly mobile. So they're kind of stuck where they are unless they have someone else take them. But it's,
I would like to address one item though. Is parking. And we have a responsibility to, when we have these open parcels and open plan, we have a responsibility to make sure people can access them too. So, you know, part of the subcommittee would be looking at that parcel and finding out where can we put some
parking
type
lot.
of parking accessibility and get them off the road,
Right.
because we don't, you know, a trail across the main road is not a trail. And that's, and we're not trying to drive people back and forth across the road. But there would be some, I mean, Wildcat Falls it's a small parking lot, but
yeah, it's
a
a tiny
parking lot.
parking lot.
Yeah, so I mean, there's some space that we potentially could find either, you know, I don't know where. I mean, we'd have to go look at this whole parcel. We had a plan for Fields Farm, but that's, without this parcel, we were waiting for this, when the, you know, the subdevelopment was made, this was supposed to be conveyed to us. And that's, so we were waiting for that
Exactly.
shoe to drop, so.
One of the concerns with the parking, even if you put a parking lot down there, because I know we've never been able to get into Wildcat Falls in 4.5 years of trying, because there's never a spot. We won't park in the neighborhood. And it was shut down during
Thank you.
COVID because of that very issue.
Yeah.
And I'm a little concerned. I don't know if anyone will go all the way back to Tamazian, but you've got Fuller Mill right there and Farmer Road that are side streets that basically only the neighborhood people and their visitors go up there. It wouldn't be difficult for someone to say, I'm gonna walk a trail, you know, I'm gonna park at Tamazian, and then I'm just gonna walk.
And the same
Down.
thing we tell everyone, if there's parking issues, call the police.
Yeah, oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's the way we can deal with it. That's the only, because
That's
we
the only real
don't
way.
have any enforcement ability, so all we
No,
can do is just,
that I understand. I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm looking more at trying to preclude these issues from happening, so we're not aggravated all the time because there's someone parked on the street that doesn't belong there. I think I've taken up enough of your time. Comes back and ramble.
No, no, great questions. Who else? Hi.
Joseph Anutto. Last name is Annutto. I live at Fort Tamazian Drive, right next to the open field. And I presume the large interest in this common land is to be able to use that as parking. I am one of the 6 deeds. It is an undivided interest. And so just if you get I'm sorry, the reason I say this is I am an attorney. Just because you may get the undivided interest of this home developer, that doesn't mean you can start using it. You need all 7, not just one of the 7. And so I will tell you that I will never be signing an easement. I will never be signing a deed. And so I just want to make sure that I put that on the record for comment, that you can probably save the town some money by not having the attorney approaching the 7 people, because they won't be getting mine. And I know there's at least one other homeowner here that's of the 6. There may be others, I don't know. And I can't speak with them, but I'm sure that there are others that will be objecting to that as well. There is wetlands in the back. I am concerned about erosion in the back. Yes, there are some animals and such, but I'm more concerned about the parking and the access, because there's already a lot of access around
Horse Hill.
I'm sorry?
Horse Hill?
Thank you. Horse Hill Nature Preserve over there. We get some of the overflow over into our side, and to just invite more of that is a real problem. Now, I notice in the letter from the town's attorney, they say that by signing the easement, we could be alleviating some liability and responsibility. And I would challenge that. I don't believe that's an accurate statement. Right now, if somebody comes onto that common land, they are a trespasser. I owe no duty to them, and if they get hurt, again, I have no duty to them, and they're on their own. But if we sign an easement and we start inviting these people, they become invited guests. I've increased my liability because now I am responsible for them if they are on that property. And so as an undivided
The state-
interest in that property,
The state does not, the state holds the open land. They don't,
but if it's an easement, I'm still owner. They can go
Right, but
after
it's-
both
but
the
the-
state and the homeowner. And I won't be taking that on that level of liability. So, don't have any questions, but I wanted to try to save the town some money by not having it pursued any further.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wanted to? Questions, comments?
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good, and you?
Good. My name is Christopher Fortin. We live on 7 Windy Hollow.
Is
that Think-
FORTIN?
Fortin. I think I played the cross for your daughter. Might have gone to school with your. Do you have a daughter, Sarah?
Molly.
Molly.
Yeah,
Okay. So I've been a part of the community for a long time. I grew up on Piedmont, right down the road. When my wife and I first bought the home a couple years ago, it's my wife Brittany. One of the attractions was the conservation area surrounding the neighborhood, knowing that we'd have some privacy. I know that it's getting harder and harder to find privacy around here. A question that I have is, do you have a proposed map of the trail system? I know there's one that's already being constructed now, and where your idea would be to access it.
We don't.
there's no proposed trail system for Fields Farm or for this parcel.
Okay.
The trails that are on Fields Farm were not made by us. They were made by mountain bikers, went out there and did their own thing.
Fair enough, because that's one thing we've noticed is there's already been a lot of chainsaw activity out there, composite bridges built, things that are kind of unnatural for a area that should be protected. Another question would be, in your opinion, do you expect any type of property devaluation at all with our neighborhood, with potentially having a parking lot so close and nearby?
We've not seen that for any of the other parcels.
Okay,
We've got on-street parking for some of the facilities now, some of the properties now, and we have designated parking spots, parking lots for some of them also, and we've not seen any or had any concerns about that.
fair enough. I know we're still in the really early stage of early stages of this, but I'd really like to all work together. And if there is a trail system going in, that we create some type of buffer between the neighborhood and some of the houses there. That's all I have.
It's again, it's never our intent to make these trails. We don't try to wrangle up people's backyards. It's trying to keep them away and just get ways for people to get in the woods and get out of the woods without having them be a pest.
Makes sense to me. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
So I can add a comment to that. My name is Andrew Duane. I live at 10 Dwyer Street, and I guess I'm speaking on behalf of the Wildcat Falls Subcommittee. A few years ago, we actually embarked on some new trail cutting for Wildcat Falls, and one of our, we had two main things to keep in mind. One was to work with erosion problems, and the other was to stay away from any of the abutters. So we made sure that none of the new trails we cut or the trails we expanded were within any sight line of any of the abutter houses. So we do try to take things like that into account. And about 3 years ago, one of our trails, we decided that there was some erosion on it in a particular place, so we moved the trail. And we do, under the Conservation Commission, we do try to take that into account.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Jen Leba. I live at 6 Mason Drive. I have two young boys who love to play outside as well as a dog. So my big concern is parking and excess traffic in the neighborhood. I just want to clarify something, a question that I had. You had said that Fields Farm has been open and ready to go for trails, and we're just waiting on this parcel. And it sounds like this is the only place you guys have been considering a parking lot. Is there anywhere else that you may have considered? Or is this like the prime location?
We've not made any planning on this parcel at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's been, we originally looked at the Fields Farm parcel, and there's some looked at the topography of it to see where we could cut a trail, maybe an access road into Fields Farm, but that was done. Oh God, it's gotta be at least 3, 4, 5 years ago. And that was while this was being built before this, and then we found out that maybe we could get this, open land around it. So there's no composite plan, there's nothing. Yeah.
So there might be another option. but
Oh,
this
yeah,
isn't just
absolutely.
the only
Yeah.
option.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Could I have your, I'm sorry, could
I'm
you spell
sorry.
your last name?
Liba, L-I-B as in boy, A.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jose Flores. I live at 3 Windy Hollow. My last name is spelled Flores.
Thank you.
And I don't really have many questions. I do have a couple comments that I would like to make. So there's a lot of children in the neighborhood. I have 4 myself. I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, 15 and 14-year-old. Occasionally we'll see a couple people walking around the area. Not many people know about the access ways through the neighborhood down to the river. Occasionally we've seen some teenagers walking down, cutting through our neighborhood to get down to the river. The last thing I want is the area to be more known by more people from outside the area, strangers that are just passing by and then they get curious and decide they want to wander. This past year on the 4th of July, we were planning to go to the parade. I was on my way. I'm sorry. We were planning to go to the fireworks. So I went home to go let my dogs out, and there was a young man. He was very lost. That's the way I can explain it. He seemed very lost. He was wandering through the neighborhood. I asked him if he needed any help. He told me that he lost his cell phone and that he was looking for his buddy. I thought it was a little suspicious, so I got on the phone with the police, and they sent a cruiser over, and they began to ask the guy questions. We saw his buddy crossing the road, and I slowed down to see what was going on, and he immediately booked it into the Horse Hill Trails. This is a one-time thing that I saw in our neighborhood. It was very strange. That's why I remember it. Things like that don't usually happen in our neighborhood, but I feel like if this place becomes more popular and there's a parking lot down the road, this can open up a can of worms for the whole neighborhood. I mean, we have a private area back there. There's, like I said, there's a lot of kids in the area. They all play outside. The last thing that anybody needs is for a stranger to come into their yard, invading privacy, putting kids at danger, especially at the bus stop. Like Lori was saying, the bus stop is right at the end of the road. My kids take the bus home. They don't take the bus too, but that's the more congested it is, the more opportunity for something bad to happen there. So yeah, my main concern is privacy, and then additional visitors. Sometimes visitors that aren't interested in the conservation area. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I drive by the Horse Hill Trails and see random cars parked there at like 10, 11 o'clock at night. Most of the time those people aren't doing some hiking. They're there for another reason. And I've seen cars having interactions with police, with police officers in that parking lot. So that's another thing that we need to consider is, wherever there's open area in the dark, that's just an invite for unwanted activity.
Were you aware that this whole plan was already in place when you bought that property?
No.
In fact, we were told nothing.
I found out about the plans. I had a brief conversation with actually Tim about it. Very brief conversation. But nothing was sent out to us.
Oh, no, this was planned before the development even started.
Yeah, nobody said anything to us at least. That's
They
all.
tell us we're in a flight path from Manchester Airport, but the whole other story you guys can't control.
Yeah, I don't have anything else. I just wanted to just share my thoughts. I want to keep my kids safe. I want them to have some privacy, and I want it to stay like that. I want them to grow up in a good and safe neighborhood, as well as everybody else with kids here. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
I just want to make one comment and, as the years have gone by, living next to Greater Woods, I've seen a little bit more traffic. There's a small parking area at the end of my street. But overall, I would say that it's been a positive thing. When you're out on the trails, you interact with other people who have similar interests. You can make new friends. Sometimes it's just a pleasant way to spend the day and interact with other people. So it's not all negative as far as a few other people being around. There are positive aspects to that too.
Mm-hmm.
If I can just rebut that real quick.
Sure.
Since then, there's been many apartment buildings put up in the area. Right down the road on Amherst and Continental, I can't even count how many apartment buildings went up since then. It's getting congested in Merrimack.
It is. Yeah.
My name is Mark Gabry. Last name is spelled Gabree. I live at 2 Windy Hollow Circle. So I'm at the corner of Tomasian and Windy Hollow. Mark, M-A-R-K. So I just had a question. So we already have Horse Hill, which is right across the street. It's a pretty extensive trail area. I've been back there myself. It's really, really nice. So why would we want to put another trail system? Like, I could probably kick a football, right? From there to there. We already have that set up as a nice parking facility there. I don't know why we'd want to create another facility in our neighborhood. And I have 2 children myself, 5 and 3, and also would be concerned about safety, about additional foot traffic. I've also noticed some strange people in the neighborhood. We have people coming down soliciting in our neighborhood. I've had to call the police several times. There was a car parked across the street from my house on Tomasian. I had to call the police on too. So I'm also concerned about additional traffic in the neighborhood. And I just think we already have Horse Hill. It's right there. I don't know why we'd create another trail system. That one's probably way more extensive than this one that we're talking about is. And I guess there's another property mentioned, parcel that's adjoined. I don't know what that is. What was it called?
Fields Farm,
Where's that?
That's
right next to it,
Yeah, it goes from you to the bridge
along the waterfront.
along the Arsahegan River.
So it's behind the whole development over to the river?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all.
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
you come up?
For the record, my name is Brittany Fortin, and I am at 7 Windy Hollow Circle. And I am just interested if there's an answer.
Couple reasons. One, it is right along the Souhegan River. So in terms of conservation and protecting the wetlands, it's a that was our interest in that parcel. But we want to allow residents and non-residents of Merrimack to use these parcels because they're beautiful. But if you've spent any time on any of them, you probably have witnessed people having a wonderful time enjoying these parcels. But a lot of them do interconnect. There is kind of a strategic value to a parcel like Fields Farm because it does connect, or would, to Horse Hills, which also connects to Wasserman. And you'll find, especially people, mountain bikers or something, that will go from parcel to parcel to parcel, and spend a couple hours getting some exercise and having a wonderful time. So there is, and it does distribute the load too. Certainly Wildcat Falls, we saw that was a parcel that was clearly overused during COVID. We never see that none of us were happy with the volume of people that were using that parcel, but by having a few others, it does spread. It spreads some of that foot traffic or bike traffic out.
And just the Fields Farm property itself is already a Conservation Commission property. We're not trying to acquire that. That's already on our menu. Whether anybody here on the board now asked for it or not, that's already there.
Right.
So, and I've only been on this commission for a relatively short time compared to my colleagues here, but we have been waiting and waiting and waiting for some kind of resolution to the question of ownership. This is the first step forward in all the time I've been here. And I can understand, I'm astonished that this was not something brought up to people who were looking to buy property in that area, but here we are. So Horse Hill, or I'm sorry, Fields Farm already exists. This discussion is whether to move forward, as I understand it, with the undivided common land that was intended to go to the town but did not. So Fields Farm is going to be there. The more control we have as a conservation commission over it, the more input the community's going to have in what happens. Right now, it's all up in the air, and we can't manage what's up in the air.
Right. Thank you very much.
If you read our deeds, they're fairly restrictive. We don't allow a lot of activities out there. But also we as a conservation commission, try to connect as many parcels together as possible. It's called a greenway, and that's what we allow, that's what makes the animals travel. So.
I'm back.
And just if I may for a second, Mr. Arnotto, I'm here to answer your questions. You're not obligated to answer mine, but just out of curiosity, did you know about the plan for Fields Farm when you purchased?
No, in fact, we were told the opposite, that nothing would be built back there.
That it was conservation land, not
Yep.
touched with wildlife.
Well, it's that's the trouble, is it's not conservation land.
Oh, that's what we were all told.
Yeah, well, it's not now.
We were told that it would be untouched.
That's why we bought. We didn't pay the premium price.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, thank you for indulging the question. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, you have commented that Horse Hill and Fields Farm are connected.
No,
No, you have to.
you gotta walk across the street.
You've got to walk across the street, but one of you just specifically stated, I believe, that you consider the two properties connected. Now, maybe someone misspoke. And my question was, how can a property over here and another one half mile or a mile down the road on
Right.
that side be considered connected?
It was a misspeak. People, likewise, Wasserman and Horse Hill are separated by a road too, but people do use them
Right, if
together.
they're willing to walk across
Right.
the road, yeah. Okay,
And we hope that they do that safely, but a lot of them do that.
Well, you
Go
can't-
from parcel to parcel.
you can't hold everybody's hand.
No.
Sorry, I just have one more thing to add. I've heard Wildcat Falls. It was brought up a couple times tonight. Speaking of Wildcat Falls, I wanted to ask. I think I know the answer to this, but I want to ask why there was fencing put up around the entire park.
Are you talking about
Or,
Watson
sorry,
Park.
Watson Park? Yeah.
Yes, sorry, wrong park. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a town property. It was a town decision. I believe there was activity going on that they didn't want.
Yes.
Along the beach there.
Yes, exactly.
Um,
So
We had no input on that.
okay, but that's where I'm kind of getting at is the unwanted activity. The unwanted activity is it's going to happen. Anytime you open up an area for public use, that unwanted activity is going to happen. And part of the reason why those fences went up is because you need to try to control the unwanted activity. So are we going to have fencing put up? Is the town going to recommend to put fencing up once we get the unwanted activity?
So the Conservation Commission, I don't know any fencing that we've.
The only one I think we put up is on Wildcat to stop
And
the,
a little piece for the butters.
yeah, for those
Yeah.
butters, so the headlights, when they pull into the parking lot, they're
Yeah.
not shining the headlights in
And we
there.
do put gates up to keep people from driving.
Driving.
Well, I understand that there's gates up to keep people from driving down there, but there's nothing to stop people from walking
But
down there
so the town doesn't.
and
you know,
misusing. That's
this-
where I'm getting at is the misuse
So
of
you
the
understand that
property.
there's gonna be nothing stopping people walking on that parcel now.
I understand that, but
So,
by
so there's nothing, there's no controls over it. It's not gonna be under the chapter 111. It's gonna be,
I understand
well,
that, but
yeah, but it's,
it's not public right now. It's not right.
go ahead. If you, the moment you mark it as do not trespass, now you're gonna be liable for anything. If you leave it as open space, you're having less liabilities.
Thank you.
Leaving it open space
Yeah.
at all. It's the thought of making it much more accessible by a lot of people, because I've gone by Horse Hill some days and it's just been absolutely mobbed. I consider myself very lucky that we can just walk across the street. But I think, as Jose and Mark are stating, if you put a sign there that says Fields Farm Conservation Land, it's like, oh my God, there's a big arrow going, pull in here, pull in here, pull in here, or walk in here, walk in here, walk in here.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lord. And I'm going to jump onto that idea. Again, Chris Fortin, 7 Windy Hollow. My brother lives across the street on Fuller Mill Road. Now, when he purchased his property, he was well aware of the established trail system and what that would bring. He sees well over 100 people a day pass on that trail system, but he knew when he was buying the property, that's how it would be like. What he wasn't ready for are weekly people coming in, stumbling in his backyard, sometimes intoxicated, sometimes in the middle of the night, setting off his alarm system, dealing with this on a weekly basis because it's a beautiful trail. You guys have done a tremendous job, but it has created such an advertisement. And I think that's our fear, is that if we create such an advertisement or these really established trails, we're going to start seeing that same issue. And fiscally speaking, this is not going to bring money to the town. We're not charging people to go on these trails. It's in the liability column. Even if we don't spend a lot of money on it, we still, I'm assuming, are going to spend some type of money on it. And what it's actually going to do, I'm assuming, and I'm not a lawyer or a realtor, but this is probably going to decrease our property value, which is going to decrease our property taxes, which in the long run is going to take more money out of the town's pocket to go towards schools and infrastructure. Now that's really 30,000 feet above looking down at it. I really just would like to see a safe community for our families, and I think that's what we're here trying to say today.
You should review the municipality costs
Okay.
of conservation land versus built land.
You're right. I don't know those costs. I have not gone through those books. I just know, understanding property value,
Yeah.
that when you build a parking lot closer or something like that, it most likely decreases it, which takes out 20-something homes of property taxes that can go towards the school system. But mainly, we'd like to keep our community
Yeah,
safe.
and that's something you shared landowners of that parcel have. That's a power you have, right? You can stipulate that no parking or whatever on that easement that if you grant it.
Perfect. I'm not a landowner, but I have full faith in those who are. But thank you for your time.
Yes.
No parking, no trails,
All right.
no roads, no access.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah. So some of you may be familiar with Sklar Park. We got that property and it was basically a dumping ground. Out of sight, out of mind. People go down there. They did criminal activity, vandalize everything. Now, through our efforts over the years, we've pretty much eliminated that. We put up barriers. We have police patrolling it. We have volunteers walking the trails, picking up trash. It's kept very clean. Our properties are well maintained in this town. It's one of the attractions of the town. And, you know, in my opinion, you look at this map. Here's what we're talking about right here. Here's Field Farm right there. People can just wander right there. There's no barrier. At the very least, if we have volunteers paying attention to it, we can clean up the trash. We can make sure there's nothing, fishing going on. But right now, it's on you guys.
For all of us. To push blame is what you're doing. To push it on us, if this doesn't go through, now you just got my dander up. No. I'm a good Irish girl, I can't help it. You're telling me, as one of those common property owners, that if I don't release my legal attachment to that property, that it's going to be my fault if things go wrong.
Oh, no, sometimes I'm not very good with words, but.
Okay. Neither am I.
So
we're even.
what I meant was, people are gonna be people. They're gonna vandalize, they're gonna do this.
Right.
I'm just saying that
Yeah.
we put a lot of effort into taking care of our properties and stuff, and
I see that, but
I'm-
listening to Chris, his brother, and I've seen his house, where it is, it still happens. I know you can't control everybody, but I think we need a little more reassurance that if you put a sign on there that says Fields Farm Conservation Land, that that's not gonna be the Neon Joe's Bar type sign. You say that if I say, no, you can't put a parking lot on that easement, that's the only thing that covers. It doesn't cover you being able to put a parking lot somewhere else on the property. And you keep pushing back on this easement, but you're not considering the fact that that's not all of it, that if say, I don't know how much footage it has on Amherst.
I'm not sure.
Okay, so let's just throw out numbers. Say there's 2,000 feet of frontage on Amherst, and you leave a 750-foot buffer here and a 750-foot buffer there. You still have that 500 feet in the middle, if I've done my math correct, that you can put a parking lot. That still, in no way, shape, or form, alleviates the chance that someone is going to park on Fuller Mill, Farmer, Tamazian, or even as far down as Leicester, because Leicester's a fairly wide dirt road where it hits Amherst, or park in Horse Hill still because it's easier access and walk back. So far, nothing you've said tonight has alleviated the fear of a parking lot anywhere along there. And that's one of our main concerns that I feel that the commission is kind of pushing around. So I think that's going to be one of the biggest hurdles. And I wholeheartedly agree. We already have Horse Hill. And every time I've been in there, there have been times when it's been bombed, especially during COVID when we couldn't go anywhere else. And I agree, the social aspect of that was our lifesaver during COVID. We said, take the dogs across the street, let's have a blast. And you keep your distance, or someone might be masked. We had a place to go. It was awesome. And I love the property. So I don't see, even if it's only $1,000 that it's spent, you're listening to a whole bunch of people. And my husband couldn't be here tonight, and there were other neighbors I know that were very interested that couldn't be here tonight. And it's like, I just don't feel like we're getting through that. I think there were too many issues for you guys to overcome. You can easily say, not having it at Horse Hill, not happening at Greater Woods. Now, was Greater Woods there when you moved in?
No, it wasn't.
Okay. Were you notified it was going to be there when you moved in?
I don't think I could be notified because it was, I've lived there for 40 years. It gradually happened piece
It was
by
private
piece.
property for
Okay.
a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a little bit of a different
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, we bought it.
But the biggest concern, again, we have to go back to parking and the safety in the neighborhood of extra cars being in there, the bus stop, the whole bit. And I don't truly think the commission is totally addressing that fear, other than from the aspect of the easement that or the divided common area that some of us own. So I think that's still there. And honestly, I'm starting to think it may be asking for trouble that hasn't come up yet, but may still come up by putting something down there. And maybe it's me because I have a lot at stake. My son is grown and moved out, but I'm hoping for grandchildren sometime in the near future. I see Jose's kids and Mark's kids. Mark's property abuts mine. Jose's is right across the street. I watch those 4 kids play together all the time. I've got Matt and Jen Liba. They have the 2 young boys on our other side, and it's awesome to watch them to be able to ride their bikes. The boys go into the woods. Mark's boys with him go into the woods and tap trees on our properties for maple syrup. And I don't want him to be worried that he's out tapping, and while he's tapping the tree, he's got to be doing this to watch his kids. It's not fair. This was never told to us when we moved here, ever. And I came in here pretty neutral, but I'm starting to agree that my property will never have an easement on it. Because I'm not sure you will be able to address all the fears that we have. And now I promise you, I'm not going to ramble anymore.
Have we heard from everyone? So,
Next agenda item is-
okay. All right.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. No, you're welcome to stay too.
You can stay in there.
Welcome to stay, but you won't hurt our feelings if you don't want to stay and hear about our next agenda item, which is, we haven't answered all your questions, and I don't hear a motion. It doesn't mean we won't make one, maybe at our next meeting.
Motion for what?
If someone wanted to make a motion, now would be the time to do it.
Personally, I'd like to talk to see what other options we have.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's, you know, I don't want to, it's not obviously
Yeah,
not going to go forward, so.
yeah, talk to the town's attorney and see what our other
Yeah.
options are. Why don't I take that as a, lost my. I'll make that follow up with them. So to answer your question, I guess no one here is wanting to make a motion tonight. Our takeaways, this will come up, it'll show up on another agenda, but we're gonna ask for some feedback from the town's attorney, see what other option is there. Like Gage said, we really haven't done a thorough exploration of where a parking lot could go.
No,
could go.
nothing. No. The only parcel we looked at all was the Fields Farm side.
Mhm.
And that was is that considered passive recreation to allow a car to go drive down there and park or not?
Mm-hmm. So it likely won't be on our March 27th agenda, but at some point we've kicked this can down the road for a couple of years now. We haven't lost our enthusiasm for finding a way to access this parcel. So it will be on a future agenda. Yeah, I think that's where we're gonna leave it. All right. Let's move on to the only other item under other business. And again, you won't hurt any of our feelings if you want to bail on us at this point, but you're welcome to stay also. The next item under other business is an update on the state-owned parcel, tax map 5C, lot 659. And Tim Tenhave is here to present this item to us.
All right. Can I present with this computer?
You should be able to.
You should,
Yeah, there you go.
It's coming
The
out.
guru.
and support is on its way.
No, nothing.
And Andrew, thank you for
Do you know
coming
if it
tonight.
was- yeah, there
You're
we go.
welcome to
Lights. You could
move up here too and turn on the mic if you want. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Mouse, wake up.
Wish we could always have the lights like this.
There you
It's so
go.
much nicer.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about a few different things here. So what I thought I would do is start by giving you all a vision. A vision that I had when I was completely sober. No,
Sure.
sorry, a little levity.
That's right.
Sure about that.
All right, so you
Not
have
on
a,
TV or anything.
I saw in your backup that you have a map similar to what I'm trying to show here on the screen. So this is a print, a PDF of what's on the Merrimack GIS site. The yellow parcel is the state-owned parcel next to Wildcat Falls. But a vision that that I had been thinking about for more than 30 years, since I used to live down near here for quite a while, and the vision of a number of other very notable members of Merrimack's public, and some of them have since passed on, had always thought about viewing Wildcat Falls, or what we used to call 80 acres, as something to be much more. In fact, it was thought of as 80 acres times 2. And in reality, it's even more than that. So the vision I want to show you is that this parcel here is the 80 acres that we know about, or Wildcat Falls. This is the state-owned parcel that abuts it and is next to the highway. This parcel just north, I got my direction right. Yeah, maybe it's more east. Is a privately owned parcel. And then this small sliver here is also a state-owned parcel. Besides that, everything else that you see all blocked off is either a former junkyard or a number of residents' homes. But it was always thought that way down the road, that 80 acres of Wildcat Falls could be the Wildcat Falls property, the state parcel, this private parcel, and this other state parcel, coming up for a total of somewhere around 160, 180 acres in that range. And with that thought, everyone figured we'd start with the Wildcat Falls parcel. The state-owned parcel to grow it and to make it get that way. And that's kind of why we're here, I think, a little bit, is to talk about what could be, or the vision. And what I want to do is talk to you about ways to achieve this vision now that things are happening. So quite a few years ago, when the turnpike, when the bridge was upgraded, Merrill's Marauders Bridge over the highway, it was thought at that point that maybe in the 2013 or whatever, 10 years ago or more, it was thought that, hey, let's reinforce to the state that we're interested in this parcel. So when they did all the public hearings for the bridge project, knowing that the widening, which is what's about to take place, is going on, is we laid the groundwork, a number of us, including our former town manager, to say, hey, we're really interested in this parcel. And the comment that we got was, well, let's work out what the widening was going to look like, and then we can work through it, because the state is only retaining the parcel as possible wetlands mitigation. You say wetlands mitigation to a conservation commission member, and oh yeah, that sounds good to us. We can make that work, and we let it go. So hoping that we'd be able to realize this vision. So time went on, and lo and behold, the widening project started coming up, and I was made aware that you folks got this dredge and fill application, which also involved a wetlands impact. So this is a really big application. Don't see too many of them this big. Essentially, if you look at these wetland applications or impacts, they always have an area in them. This is section 11. So I'm on physical page 8 of the wetland permit, but section 11. It shows you that there's both permanent and temporary impacts. And when you see that, whether it's the state or it's a developer or it's a private landowner, people have to mitigate those wetland impacts, especially if they're permanent impacts. And we have state law about this, and we have wetland rules that New Hampshire DES oversees. So DES in our state rules require mitigation. So that mitigation can be a number of different ways. One of them can be to mitigate on a parcel near this parcel, which is things that we've done quite a few times. When the mall was being done and had a small wetlands impact, that resulted in mitigation in an uplands area, which actually became one of the parcels that make up Greater Woods. So not really near, but in the same town, right? Other mitigation projects have helped us with the Red Maple Trail project that happened in Greater Woods. That came about because of the mitigation that was required when the Manchester Street Bridge was replaced. Both Nashua and Merrimack had a wetlands impact, and the Merrimack's impact was resolved by doing the Red Maple Trail project. So what struck me when I started reading this is that this permit application came in, and lo and behold, I'm gonna just jump here. I'm gonna go to physical page 47. So basically here, this is a larger section. Let me get the beginning of it. So called mitigation narrative. But this speaks to the different impacts that are going to be to the 10,000 feet of permanent impacts and 120 linear feet of permanent impact to a stream channel. What was really interesting to see is, there was this paragraph here. It says, there have been numerous meetings with public and local officials throughout the development of the widening project, including 3 meetings in the town of Merrimack, Town Council in 2016, Public Works in 2018, and the public in 2018, and no potential mitigation projects were brought forward for consideration, which is really surprising because the same DOT told us, for a number of years ago that they were going to use that state-owned parcel as mitigation, and that receiving of that parcel or a conservation easement over the top of it by the commission was going to be one of their one of their mitigation activities that they were going to do. So over the 10 or 12 years of developing the widening project, people changed and memories got lost, and nothing was. Nothing popped up here, and unfortunately, the Department of Transportation has decided that instead of mitigating somewhere local in the town of Merrimack, that they're going to pay $61,000 in fees. And actually, the number's a little bit less if you go through it all. There's a whole bunch of math that comes after this, but still, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars to the state ARM fund, which is another way you can mitigate your impacts. You can put your money in what's known as the Aquatic Resource Management Fund, and basically that is a fund that funds grants to communities within the state of New Hampshire to do their own form of mitigation activities.
So, excuse me, this would be a transfer within the state from one department to another.
Exactly.
The town would not see anything.
Correct. Right. Yeah. So that's kind of striking that we're talking about real money here. We're not talking a couple of 20s in your back pocket. So going back to the vision, that state-owned parcel is worth some money, but not a lot because it's got power lines that go through it. It's got wetlands on it. It's not really developable because it doesn't have access to where you could actually develop it. And lo and behold, we bought the first 80 acres for $1. No reason to think that we wouldn't get the second 80 acres for something like $1 plus inflation over 50 years. So we're talking $100 maybe, but whatever. What I'm saying is that state-owned parcel has value, but not nearly as much value as they're going to do by cutting a check from one state department to another state department. Okay, so when I heard about this, and you probably saw some emails exchanged with me involved, I urged the town manager and others to get engaged and say, hey, wait a minute here. We've already talked about this, and this was a potential opportunity. And unfortunately, I think you've seen the response from the state where they came back and said, no, we're not interested in talking to you. And oh, by the way, you can fill out this application if you want to acquire rights to this property. Okay. Again, I put that as the right hand not knowing what the left hand already committed to or said verbally or whatever else, or maybe just flat out not understanding what was being proposed when the letter first was put out. So Steve and I met with the town manager, and I believe he's putting on another letter. I haven't seen a copy of it. If you've seen a copy of it, okay. So he's going to remind DOT, the right people, as to what this was all about. We were actually looking to help them save money by not putting $60,000 into another fund, but giving us, granting us that property at some point. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. They can do what they need to do, widen it if they need to park on the dry uplands on it for a while to do what they need to do, but go right ahead and do that. But at least make a commitment that their mitigation is going to be this. I see no reason why DES wouldn't accept that mitigation, because that's a terrific parcel with both uplands and lowlands and all of that. And I think we should continue to pursue that. And lo and behold, I told you there was 2 state parcels. There's no reason not to go for more. And I would think we might want to do that you might want to do that as a commission, and we as a town. So getting back to the vision again, and I'll stop rambling in a second and let you ask questions and whatever else, but I want you to have a feel for what's about to happen here. So the F.E. Everett Turnpike goes from all the way over here, which is near Exit 8, where the border is of the town between the town of Merrimack and the city of Nashua, and goes north all the way till you get close to the Bedford line. The current project they've been doing is in Bedford. That's where they did a bunch of blasting, and they haven't finished the southbound side yet. The project that brought this permit to you is here in this circle. That's letter D here. It has about $60,000 worth of wetland mitigation. The next piece going down is going to have some potential small wetlands impacts, but then the larger one, which goes from about exit 12? Sorry, I misspoke. The parcel that brought this is in here. So there's going to be this long stretch between 11 and 12, which is going to have a number of different impacts across it. I don't know how many feet are involved. I don't know how to calculate that. I'm not a wetland scientist and all that, but I have to believe it's going to be at least the same magnitude of the $60,000 we see here, if not considerably more, which means that it's going to need a number of mitigation activities, and which means the state's going to write another large check from one department to another. So, and then when you get all the way down to the Nashua border where they have to replace the bridge and widen the highway, that Pennachuck Brook system is going to have a huge wetland impact, both temporary and permanent, as they expand the bridges, make them wider, and all those other activities. So that's going to be another big check that's going to have to be written. So what I'd encourage the Conservation Commission to do is to jump on this idea. Certainly not wait, even though the permit that I'm showing you now has already gone through and is beyond the comment period of the Conservation Commission. I would recommend that you write a letter anyways to DES and say, hey, maybe we weren't awake at the time, or whatever, however you want to put it, but oh, by the way, we think that there are mitigation projects that could be done in the town of Merrimack to avoid checks being sent over, and to actually achieve what was the intention of wetlands mitigation, which is true mitigation, and we can do it locally. So I think in doing that, in suggesting these two parcels, well, certainly the largest one, but the two parcels, and then suggesting that they take some of their dollars that they were going to write a check to and say, how about we write a check to a private landowner in the town of Merrimack and put it towards the purchase of that private parcel, and then you can truly achieve that vision of contiguous 180 acres or so of land. Wildcat Falls could be a much larger area, and it can provide all the conservation requirements that you're looking for as well. So I think you could suggest diverting some of their dollars to make a private land purchase, which is what we've done. We did it with the mall most recently. The mall purchased a parcel of land and immediately conveyed it with a conservation deed over to the Conservation Commission. We've got precedent, and there's no reason why that couldn't happen here. I don't know the private landowner, but I'm aware that the private landowner has reached out about opportunities for that land, and I suspect for a fair price would be more than interested in knowing that it was going to remain open space. So I mean, in general, like I said, I'll stop talking now. This is kind of the vision, but you should really be aware that we're talking about a lot of money here. And there are other projects that are coming up in the town that are also going to mean money. And we paid GZA to develop a report, Conservation Commission did, to develop a report about other potential mitigation projects that could be done. And for the state or anyone to think that we don't have those already thought about, you have. And you could go forward with them, and we could stop the check writing unless it's to support our goals within the town of Merrimack. So, all right, I'm done. So, but I think you as a commission should act, and I think you should act now about this one and refer to this permit and say, okay, sorry, we're a little bit late to the game, but nothing's happened yet, so there's no reason why you're not late. You don't have to worry about it. I don't think a check has actually been written yet, okay? And then you got all these other checks that are going to have to go. These wetland permits and interruptions and dredge and fills are going to be coming to you. So as soon as the town clerk receives them, you should be calling a special meeting and say, oh, by the way, remember that vision we told you about state and DES? Well, here's another opportunity to do that. And when that's all done, by the way, we've got this final GZA report that speaks to about another 10 or 12 other projects that could be done in our town. All right. Now I promise I'm done talking.
You notice we're all still listening.
Yes.
So I think that the next step, if I'm not mistaken, it's so the town manager's working on have a response to that January memo, the January feedback we received from DOT. I think his recommendation and yours was too, that be a joint letter from him and the Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
I don't, unless someone here has a reservation about this, I think as soon as that's ready, I'll go ahead and sign that on behalf of the Conservation Commission. I don't think that's anything we need to convene a meeting on. We all see the plan. We all know what that's gonna intend to do. Why become a speed bump in that
Would it
process?
be worthwhile to include this section in the main, so that, you know, we'd like to talk to you, continue to talk to you about the rest of these mitigation options, opportunities? Yeah, no, but
Probably
just
to
like the
north.
rest of these mitigation options that are, you know, as the road continues.
Do we do that now, or do we wait till we
No, I,
receive a
why,
subsequent
why not
feedback?
put them, you know, not put them on guard, but, you know, hey, we already know these are coming. You know, we'd like to continue talking to you about these.
And who's best to have that conversation with first? Is it DOT or DES? To build do we need an alliance?
If there's going to be an alliance, I believe DES is the one that considers whatever permit DOT gives. And if DOT, there's some dispute over, or some difference of memory over what has happened in the past, that's a separate issue. I think we should be in contact with DES and say, here's what's coming down the pike. Here's the sense of the Conservation Commission.
Build a constituency there?
Yeah.
Does
'Cause
anyone
the
know who
DOT
that
just wants
person?
DOT just wants, they just want to pay. I just want to keep going. They don't care.
It's easier that way.
Yeah.
Write a check and keep going.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm. Do you know
What,
Does
DES?
anyone know a contact at
Yeah,
DES?
Lori Summers.
No, so Lori's retired.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, Paul told me that last week or so.
Mhm.
But there's someone else in her
I'm
place.
sure this, yeah, I mean, this.
Right, and there's no reason not to reach out to that person in the Wetlands Bureau and put them on notice. Make them aware that these other projects, 13, 137, 61A, B, C, and the others are coming, right? And oh, by the way, the one that brought this project to light, we would like you to take another opinion. We know we're late on that one, but
Mhm.
yeah, the reality is, even if they write that check, there's so much more money they're gonna have to spend. So, yeah, sorry, I'll stop moving the screen so you don't get distracted.
Because we have history, obviously, of the want for that parcel, discussions around it. So it's not like would be out of the blue saying, hey,
Mhm.
My sense is go for it. For the joint letter, I don't think we need a special meeting.
I don't have any issues signing it.
Who would like to make a friend at DES? Find the right person.
I'll call up there. It's no
Do you know?
problem. Yeah. I have a personal issue I gotta go address anyways.
Paul said in fact, I think he did it when we met with him last week, but he said he was gonna put community development on alert that when the next one of these dredge and fill proposals comes across, he's gonna let us know immediately so we can call that special meeting and meet that. What is it, a 14-day or is it 10-day?
Well,
It's
yeah.
very
So
small.
within 14 days, you have to provide comment, or you can write a letter to DES says that you'd like a little bit longer, and then that provides you up to 40 days to comment.
But you
Okay.
have to act within those first period
Right.
in order to
Of,
get the
right.
extension.
Yeah,
Which would take a special meeting to
potentially.
give that
yeah.
kind of feedback.
Yeah. So, not sure everyone has this final report, which was done just prior to COVID. I can send these all out. Gage is the one
Yep.
who worked all this.
Yeah, we
'cause
have
you
all
were,
this.
you were chair at the time, I believe, but GZA didn't recommend, but did an evaluation and did some priority ranking of other projects that could be considered. and you might want to read through it. There's also, I know I'm going very fast. There's also some great graphics.
Yeah.
Some great graphics that explain better and outline things. Unfortunately, I think Dr. Tar missed the fact that this state parcel is not currently conservation property. She labeled it that way. I mean, that was our intent at the time, but it really wasn't conservation. It was just state-owned land. And the parcels we've talked about, the private one is green. I think she would have colored that one at least green, and green is an interesting color in that those are areas that you'd want to consider doing things if they're not already spelled out here. So, but you should be thinking about it. You might.
Would this be in our, at ComDev, Community Development
I
Office?
think I forwarded this out very recently, didn't I?
Okay.
To everyone?
Yeah, they have copies of all this.
Yeah. So I would think besides all of this, that you as a commission should maybe spend some meeting time looking at this GZA report and think about other projects besides the vision I just showed you for that one area, and look at projects that you may not agree with or may not think that the priorities are right or whatever, but whenever you see a wetlands permit, you should be referring to that as well and saying, hey, can we do local mitigation? And for awareness, I don't know what's coming in the private sector, but just down the street here where the Wire Road intersection is with Daniel Webster Highway, that's just north of here, there's a project to either make that to realign that intersection and replace the bridge that goes over Babusick Brook. Both of those, or at least the Babusick Brook crossing, is going to have a wetlands mitigation that the town is going to have to mitigate for. No reason not to use that as a way to accomplish one of these projects, or if I may suggest, the town would be on the hook for, let's just say it's $30,000. The equivalent mitigation would be $30,000. You as a conservation commission might decide to do like we did at the Red Maple Trail and offer a project that you pay for, and then the town doesn't have to pay that $30,000, saving the taxpayers $30,000 because you have $1 million to work with. Okay, so you could accomplish one of your projects. Wetland mitigation could be done locally, and you could save the taxpayers some money, or in other words, just not utilize the money for that because you already have the money in the conservation fund. Something for you to think about. The other project that's on the table is the repair of the Cumberland Bridge, which is out by the Central Fire Station. That is going to have to, that and the walking trail that goes from Watson Park in behind the high school that joins up with the Wildcat Falls trail structure and trail system. That's going to require some mitigation. There's another opportunity to accomplish, say, one of these projects or something else, and maybe lower the cost to the town and the taxpayers by utilizing some of your conservation funds to do. So you can do a good thing that way. And you know that your funds get replenished at some rate. So doing projects of that are in line, I think, with for the reason to have that fund. That's just my suggestion. But certainly you wouldn't want the town writing a check to the state arm fund.
Mm-mm.
So just a little bit more. So I'm happy to help any way you want, provide advice, be engaged with this, certainly to realize that vision. It's not mine, but I'm happy to champion it because I know a lot of other people had it much earlier than I did. So. Sorry, just a little tickle in my throat.
It's a lot to think about. Sure, Paul will send you that same letter once he's
I hope so.
finished drafting it. Anyone else? And I can forward that GZA report out if anyone.
Just a link to it.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
I meant to send it recently. Maybe I meant to and forgot. Does anyone else have any questions for Tim? Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Tim.
I thought we had you on for one agenda item, but it was a well-timed reunion visit.
Yeah. If I may indulge you,
Please.
it's just first time hearing it. You're gonna get feedback like this.
Yeah.
It's a process, okay?
Yeah, a long process.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ran into all the same situations with the other property owners, and maybe you don't go anywhere, but I would, I'd suggest that that you at least take up one of those landowners who's offered to give you their share and take it.
Yep.
Because things change, right? People move on, people sell their properties, okay? You might not see it today, it might be 20 years from now, okay?
Yep.
And then I would also get a handle on Fields Farm, because there's some rogue activity going on out there.
Mhm.
That's a concern.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is.
So, but yeah, or maybe it never happens, right? But at least you'll have Fields Farm, and you can start with that, right?
Mm. Andrew, did you have questions?
No, I'm just fascinated by the presentation. And I'd like to think that maybe in my lifetime we'll actually see it.
Well,
Do you know who the private owner is? Do you know who it is?
I wrote down the
Oh,
name.
that little sliver?
Yes.
Yes.
I wrote the name down.
Is that the troublemaker that we see with motorcycles occasionally?
No, it's owned by the Patterson family.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, Jonah used to be. I think Jonah was one of them. I don't know. I don't know who the owner of record is, to be
Yeah,
honest with
okay.
you. But I think there's an opportunity there, right? So either way, you may want to go after that property anyways, okay? And just start a conversation, right? Find out who it is. Write them a letter and say we're interested. Can we talk? Right?
Send our land guy.
But
The land.
yeah, but just be aware if you once you start down that road, you might get a very anxious landowner. You may get one that's a little tepid. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's a process, right?
Mm. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Tim.
Yep.
Good to see you. Yep.
Sorry, what's that? Oh yeah, it's fairly new for me. It took 2.5 years to get it. 2.5 years.
Okay. Good, so we've got several assignments, several takeaways from that. Brings us to the last item. Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the draft meeting minutes from the February 27th, 2023 meeting of the Conservation Commission with the following corrections. I have none.
Motion by Ellen. Second by Mike Druin. And Ellen has none. Anyone else? I need it. All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes? Motion carries 6-0.
Hope Cindy's at home going, oh, they missed it, they missed
We both already settled, so.
it. Change anything?
Oh, no, it doesn't. River just capitalized.
I see that was done repeatedly, and I'm not sure if she did that referring to,
Instead of writing out the full name?
yeah.
Because if you said the Merrimack River, it
There
would
there
be.
were repeated references to.
Yeah, it's referring to Merrimack and Sauhegan River, I believe.
Let's go with that.
Yeah,
It's too hard to change the motion.
Yeah.
Anyone want to send us home?
I live with an English major. I'll ask him when I get home.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Gage, all in favor? Motion carries 6-0, 8:17 PM.
Wow, this is a long one.
Not accustomed to this.